Alrighty, this is part 2 of the cuckoo clock rebuild. So now we're going to get into dismantling and disassembling the movement. This particular movement is considered a very difficult. It's got a lot of levers, it's got a lot of gears, pinions, and the most challenging part that a lot of people face is the front side of the movement. This is what they call a rack and snail. So this is the rack that comes down, and this piece here is the snail. And when it comes time to strike, this lever here pushes up on the warning and drops the snail into place, and this piece locks into one of the saw blade teeth of the rack. At the same time, the rack has this arm that comes up and it drops and is placed in one of these notches on the snail. So finally, when it gets time to count, it's running. The cuckoo bird comes out, and this is counting it down until it gets to the last tooth right here, and then it locks into place. And now it's set up for the next hour. So let's go ahead and start disassembling. The first step we're going to do is remove this star wheel, which is also our hammer and count wheel, and it's held on with a screw. So if you get up underneath it and slowly push, you can remove. There we go. It's very dirty, very oily, so I'll put that into the movement, or the bin. Now the next step we're going to do is remove all these pieces. These are held in place with E-clips, so I'm just going to slightly pull, and we have that E-clip off. And we'll rotate this up, and that is our rack. And let's see, the next step that we want to remove is this E-clip here. And sometimes it's easier said than done on a couple of these. Alright, so we'll start at the back here and remove this piece. Sometimes these things can be very hard to get on and off. So, like they always say, do not rush it. Take your time, because if you break anything, it's not going to go well in the long run trying to repair what you just broke. I remember when I first started out in clock repair, kind of got in a hurry on a project that I was working on one time, and ended up basically ruining clock, but luckily it was mine and not a customer's. But that was many moons ago, and so from that day on, I always take my time. Alright, so now we'll remove that pin. And let's see here. Still trying to see. Okay. So this E-clip here. There we go. Alright, so now we have the snail and our intermediate wheel. And we also have our washer. Next is going to be the set lever, which is this one here. And that is kind of gummy. It should fall back into place by gravity, but it's sticking, so that's a sign that it does need to be completely overhauled. Alright, so we're going to remove this pin here. And these are the ones that can give a good fit, because these are spring based pins and they do not give. So these can be quite tricky to get a hold of. There we go. And when I get through doing this particular movement, I'm going to actually replace these pins with E-clips and not these spring bar pins, because these spring bar pins do have the tendency to get stuck from time to time, especially on the movements, and to me they're just more of a headache than they are worth it. So now, there we go. And now we'll remove that lever. Alrighty. Now the next thing we're going to do is remove the clutch, or the crutch part here of the pendulum. And so I'm just going to open this up just a little bit. Alright. And now we'll remove the nuts of the back. And the most delicate part is removing the back plate ever so diligently. Alright. And here's our verge, our escapement, and it needs a good polishing and cleaning. Very gummy. We have our great wheel. It's got a strong click in it, so that's good. It just needs cleaning. We have our second great wheel. And again, it's got a strong click. That's good. Now this particular wheel here is part of the intermediate wheel, and the cuckoo clocks made these of plastic. And 9 times out of 10, when a cuckoo clock quits running, it's usually this wheel that will get a crack in it, and the gears will hang up on the teeth. But this is a good wheel. Now on the other side, we have our second wheel. Ooh, look at all that grit. We got dirt and grime. That is definitely going to hold and stick up the movement. Got a little bit of corrosion on the gear, but other than that, that looks good. The next one is our escapement wheel, and right off I'm just seeing a lot of dirt, a lot of grit. We do have sharp teeth on the gears, so that's good. None of them look to be deformed or broke. But again, the back is gummy, dirty, oily. And also on this arbor here, showing a little bit of rust, so that needs to be cleaned thoroughly. On the strike side, we have our fan. And again, it is really gummy and dirty. So that looks okay. Then we have our third wheel. And this is the warning wheel, and you can always tell by this little pin on the post. That's what puts the clock in the warning, and it stops by the other bar until the bar is removed out of the way, and then it can go through its chime sequence. But the arbors and the pinions look good, and I think that's as far as that one goes. This is our second lever. This is what runs the coukoo and locks it into place. That's good. We do have one more pinion to remove. So we'll go ahead and pop this E-clip out and take this piece off. And it is really dirty, really gummy. So this one does need to be cleaned as well. And the way this works in relation is when it goes into the warning the strike, this will move up and this will actually get caught in this position here. And then once the cuckoo bird stops, they go back and reset. That's as far as we're going to disassemble at this moment. We're going to leave the the fork in place, and the main wheel here, because sometimes if you get those out of relations, you can mess those up. But we can put this in the ultrasonic cleaner, clean it as is, and it'll still get the work done. The cannon pinion and the hour arbor, you don't want to remove these. They're friction fitted, and they're very tight, so in order to remove it, you'd have to get a wheel puller or a gear puller and remove this brass gear completely off, and then this black piece off, and then when you go to put it back on, you're going to have a good support on the back to keep this from bending or breaking, and a hollow punch or some sort of a stake set that's deep enough to fit down over the shaft as you drive these two items back into relation with each other. The fork here, the gathering fork or pallet, these can be very tricky because that pin that sticks up is very fragile, and it does not give you much clearance between it and the pin post. So even if you're using a small punch, you stand the risk on breaking that pin off, and then it's going to be a nightmare trying to refit, cut, and install a pin. So that is basically the cuckoo clock disassemble. And on the back here, you can definitely see the oil that's just built up. That's just pure grease. So what we're going to do is go through and clean each hole out, peg it, and put it through the ultrasonic, polish all the pivots, and we're going to do a complete rebuild of this cuckoo clock and get it back up and going. So this is part 2 of a series. I hope you enjoyed that. Stay tuned and we'll show you how it comes along.